All right, everyone, today we're going to learn two very useful grammar structures in English, the zero conditional and the first conditional. These are very important because we use them to talk about situations and their results. So let's start slowly and clearly. First, let's talk about the zero conditional. We use the zero conditional to speak about things that are always true. These are general truths, scientific facts, or things that happen regularly. For example, things in nature or things that always happen in the same situation. In this structure, we usually use the present simple in both parts of the sentence. For example, if you don't put on sun cream, you get burnt. This is always true. Another example is, when the temperature of water is 0 degrees, it freezes. This is a scientific fact, so we use the zero conditional. In zero conditional sentences, we can use words like if, when, and unless. They all connect the condition with the result. If is the most common. When is very similar, and we often use it when we are sure that something always happens. For example, when hydrogen and oxygen mix, you get water. Now, unless means if not. This is very important. For example, plants don't grow unless they have sunlight means plants don't grow if they don't have sunlight. So remember, unless is a negative condition. Let's see another example. If you go outside without an umbrella when it's raining, you get wet. This is something that is always true, so we use the zero conditional. Now, let's move to the first conditional. This one is a little different. We use the first conditional to talk about the future. It describes a real or possible situation in the present and its future result. In this structure, we use the present simple in the condition part and will plus the base verb in the result part. For example, if I go to a restaurant, I'll order food. This means it is possible, and we are talking about a future action. Another example is, if the plant doesn't get water, it'll die. This is not always true like a scientific law, but it is a real possible future result. We can also use when in the same way, especially when we are quite sure the situation will happen. For example, when I get there, I'll buy some food. And again, we can use unless to mean if not. I won't be able to go unless somebody pays for me. This means if nobody pays for me, I won't go. Now, a very important point about structure. Conditional sentences have two parts or clauses. One is the condition and the other is the result. When the sentence starts with if, when, or unless, we use a comma between the two parts. For example, if I go to a restaurant, I'll order food. But if we start with the result, we do not use a comma. I'll order food if I go to a restaurant. Both sentences mean the same thing. Before we finish, let's look at some useful vocabulary. We can talk about countries and nationalities. For example, Algeria, Algerian, Bolivia, Bolivian, Colombia, Colombian, Malaysia, Malaysian, Morocco, Moroccan, Romania, Romanian, Sri Lanka, Sri Lankan, Sweden, Swedish, Switzerland, Swiss, and Vietnam, Vietnamese. We also have some important nouns like ID or ID card, which is identification, war, king, queen, and capital, which is the main city of a country. So, to finish, remember this. Use the zero conditional for things that are always true, and use the first conditional for real future possibilities. If you practice these structures, you will use them more naturally.